So today's topic is about getting knocked down and getting back up again. Kind of like that song. You know, when you get knocked down, you get back up again. You're never going to get knocked down. The thing is, I was chatting with someone the other day, and they were commenting on the fact that it seems like they get to a point where they have a victory, and then something else happens. And it brought me back to the beginning days of my situation where I was going through that exact same thing. I swear to God, it seemed like every time I turned around, every time I had a victory, I would have like 15 seconds to take a breath. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but it seemed like a few hours later, some new catastrophe would come up, derail everything, and have me in that fight-flight response, trying to figure out what to do. And and as they were talking about their situation, I was just like, man, that is really familiar. I mean, I absolutely remember that. I mean, I had like, first it was deciding to leave, and then it was getting served that I filed first, but the secondary serving or whatever, whenever she's like, I want everything, and I want you to pay for everything, and my attorney, and I want full custody, and blah, blah, blah. And then I was in the fight of my life through the divorce part. And then I swear to God, the day that I do not lie, or I do not kid, whenever I received word that my divorce was final, my attorney called me and said, "You're done." And I was like, oh, thank God, I can finally get my life back. Then things happened at work. I had a deputy director who I was not his favorite person, and he made it his mission in life to try to see that I would fail. I ended up fighting that for a year until I finally just said, okay, I need to find a different job or a different position before I get into a situation where they find something for me to do. Finished that. Then it was BS with the kids in school. So it reverted back to the ex. It was all that stuff going to collections. Then it was the IRS. Then it was child support services. Then it was my retirement fund. I mean, it was like, I swear to God, I felt that no matter what happened, there was always another sucker punch that was right around the corner. And here's the problem with this. One, it's not a lot of fun. But the other part about this that was really tough is I got to the point that every time I felt like things were getting good, I got paranoid because I'm like, oh crap, something's going to happen. What's going to happen next? And I really got into this mode to where even if things calmed down, I couldn't feel comfortable because the track record was something else was going to happen. Now, the thing is all of what I'm talking about took, what was it? A couple of years or maybe 3 years to go through. I mean, so it really felt like this was just this ongoing disaster that was never going to stop. Now, the reason I bring this up is because it does stop. Things do change. It just takes a while to get there. And I don't talk about this often, so it's one of those things that I fear can get lost in the story. And that, you could look at it and go into your story and like, oh, prior to knowing all this, well, yeah, okay, Duane went through this. He had a little bit of problems, but, he figured it out pretty quick. Things were, he talks about his dark days, but obviously it wasn't that bad, right? I mean, and that's really, it was bad. It was really bad. It was one of those things where I didn't know if I was going to make it through the other side of this because it's like every time I turned around, something else was happening. Oh, and then in the course of all that, the government shut down. So, I had a reduction in pay and then all the crap that happened with that. It seemed like every time I turned around, there was no reprieve. There was no opportunity to take a breath. The thing is as I went through that, and in a lot of ways for me personally, it wasn't fun. It was kind of scary. But at the end of the day, it was actually a good thing for me because it really forced me to reevaluate how I look at my life, how I address situations, And it fundamentally changed my perspective and how I approach things. The good part about that is now as things happen, they don't bother me as much. I finally got to a point, I think a good example of this is starting the channel. Because there was a lot of risk with starting this channel. I'm like, oh crap, if I start this channel and she finds out, she's gonna take me back to court, what's gonna be the ramification of it? And there still could be a ramification. And for the people who, I typically get this question a lot. As of this date right now, June of 2019, as far as I know, she has no clue about the channel. I do try to keep it not necessarily tied to my real name. So if somebody knows me and they just type in my name into the Google or into YouTube, for the most part, this stuff doesn't come up. It's starting to get a little more, but for the most part, it's not like the main thing that pops right up. So the thing is I ultimately got to the point where I was just tired of worrying about what was going to happen next. And I had this little sit down with myself, and I was basically saying, I can sit here and worry and live in fear for the rest of my days, or until said time that all the kids are off and that there was, in my mind, there was no way that she could come back and do anything. The problem with that is if I subscribe to that mentality, I would still be waiting, right? I would still be living in that state of fear, waiting another 4 years for the last child to fall off. So, getting back to that, all of this caused me to take a step back and really say, okay, I can't do this anymore, meaning I can't just keep worrying about what if, what's the next thing that's going to happen? What could she do? And guys, I did that a lot. There was one period of time where she was hanging out with one of the local cops in town. It even seemed like maybe they were dating. I don't know. But I'm like, oh my God, now I'm going to have this cop harassing me or causing me problems. And then whenever she decided to go to college for being a paralegal, I had this flash. I'm like, oh my God, she's gonna get an attorney friend, and they're gonna make my life, a living hell, because they'll be able to litigate for free or whatever. And I spent all my time worrying about what might happen, that I wasn't giving myself an opportunity to even enjoy the moment, even enjoy the day. And then finally, I got to the point where I'm just like, F it. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to enjoy today. She's going to do whatever she does, she's going to do. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing any of us can do about what our ex is going to do next. So we can either choose to live in fear from that and have it corrupt every aspect of our life, just waiting for the next hammer or the next shoe to drop, or the hammer to fall, or whatever the term is. Or we could say, you know what, screw it. I'm going to enjoy life now. I'm going to start doing things I like to do. And, when I started the channel, I was still really low on, I'm still low on money now, but I was still, things were really tight. And I'm like, well, I kind of want to do this, and I can do this in my house, and I have most of the stuff to start this out. And I just started doing it, and I enjoyed it, and it was giving me joy, and it was giving me something to occupy my time with. And this whole channel was never about an FU to the ex, or trying to expose her, or trying to get her, have some accountability. This has nothing to do with her. The whole point of this, I'm getting a little off topic, so just bear with me. But the whole point of this was to try to help somebody who was in the same mode I was in, to see that there is life after this, so you're not just trapped thinking about your ex and just living your life as if it's in chaos and ruin until 20 years down the road, or whatever your timeline is. And that's, and even prior to that, I will say that even before I started doing the channel, I was really I was really enjoying my life. I was okay with things, Debbie and I were just kind of doing stuff, and I'd do little things with the kids, and I was okay. things were looking pretty good. And ultimately what happens is one, your ex gets to the point where they run out. I made the comment the other day about, the arrows, in the quiver. At some point they run out. It can take them a long time, It could take a while. I mean, I guess technically, in a lot of ways, I feel my ex is still trying to shoot arrows my way, but it's all BS now. It's like shooting an air arrow or a Nerf arrow or something. I mean, it's like yeah, whatever. I mean, it's not a big deal. And I've pivoted my focus on the way I approach things to where a lot of this stuff doesn't really bother me. You guys may have heard me say in the past that maybe this is in comments, or maybe this has been a discussion in Discord, but there's really not a lot that's really that important. I mean, we get so wrapped up in what we think is important and what or how we want things to play out. And the grand scheme of things is it, how, are your basic fundamental needs met? Do you have a place to sleep? Do you have a place to drink water, use the restroom? Yeah, it may not be the place you want, but I mean, do you have shelter? Do you have access to food? And I'm not saying do you have access to all the things that you used to have in the past. I'm saying, are you okay, right? Just kind of focus on that aspect of it. And that was really a big part for me, is just like looking at things differently. And the crazy part, what I'll tell you, is as it progressed, it's like things got a lot better. Once I finally accepted, it's like, yeah, okay, you know what? At least I'm not in jail, It kind of feels like I'm in jail, but at least I get to go to my house. I get to sleep in my bed. I get to, I have freedom of movement around my house, Maybe I didn't have the money to go places, but I mean, it's like, okay, at least this is some good parts of my life, right? And I was able to do that. And then as I progressed on, it just got better. So my point on this is that if you're still in the middle of this and you just feel like, oh my God, every time I turn around, I'm getting sucker punched by, not even if it doesn't even necessarily have to do anything with your ex. You can just feel like you're being sucker punched by life. I mean, one of the things that happened to me, early on with this, when I was really struggling with money, is, I got a flat tire on my truck, at the time, and I'm like, oh crap. I mean, I don't even have the way to, I don't have the money to replace the tire. I don't have the money I don't have a spare car. It was like, oh hell, what am I going to do? And that was tough. That was a really tough time. It seemed like every time I turned around, I was getting kicked in the head. And, the thing is that most of the time, all this stuff just works out. When I was chatting with this person the other day, I was just saying, when you look at it, most people recover. I don't know how many people I've known who've divorced that it was just devastating when they were in the middle of it. And then a few years later, their life is so much better. And it's one of those things where it's like, wow, it's actually a hell of a lot better because this toxic person is not making their life miserable and just destroying everything they possibly can. I think that's the biggest part about this. It's two parts. One is learning to make your peace with what's going on. Really making that determination of whether being upset or worried about it is really helpful to you. And then it's just looking at your situation and comparing it to your future. And the other thing is looking at this and comparing it to what your future you used to expect. Like, whenever you're looking at it before and you had this plan, and now you happen to you're having to accept the fact that things are going to be different. And I'll tell you, if everything doesn't blow off as wind tries to blow me away, is I really believe that most of the time we end up in a situation where it's better than what we anticipated. It's different. I'll give you that. But it's not necessarily worse, and it's not even one of those things. For instance, I wouldn't turn around and trade where I'm at today to be back to where I was and to have like the finances different. I mean, I fundamentally realize now that that was a toxic relationship that was just soul crushing. I mean, it was slowly freaking killing me. And I mean, it's like one of those things where it's like, God, thank God this happened, because I wouldn't want to be in that situation anymore. So I'm not going to make this run on anymore. Just wanted to hit that because I know that a lot of people, especially in the early parts of this, are stuck in that mode and stuck thinking about that. And I wanted to just share a little bit about how I went through it, how this played out, and maybe give you something to think about. So on that, I'm going to wrap this up before I blow off this table. So anyways, I'll talk to you later.